Better buckle up. It's gonna be a long one. Alright, what's going on, everybody? Ever since The Rise of Skywalker came out, there's been a lot of hooting and hollering amongst the Star Wars fans about this is canon, or that's not canon. Back off, dude, that's not canon. But it happened in the movie. It doesn't matter because it's in the book, duh. It's like, well, okay, there's been a lot of confusing information. And I just wanted to put my 2 cents in on this, I mean, honestly, ridiculous situation. From any aspect you look at it. It's ridiculous people are upset about it. It's ridiculous that it even happened. So it's just a ridiculous situation on all fronts. But I've been wanting to put my 2 cents on this and just give more of an explanation as to why, in my opinion, it is important and it's not important. Because the reasons that it is important is just because it further divides the fan base on some level. And I'm going to get into that in just a minute. But it's not important in the grand scheme of things because, I mean, when it comes down to it, it doesn't matter what a book says. It doesn't matter what a movie says. It's all just entertainment. It's just Star Wars. And now, I know that's sacrilegious to say, but in the end, there are more important things than a fictional character's lineage, or a fictional character being alive, or a fictional character being dead. I think we can all agree on that. There's some more real-world problems that are a little bit more important. But, nevertheless, that is no excuse for companies being lazy and providing shitty reasons for retconning stuff and just overall being lazy and not including enough information in a film just to later put it out in a book or another book in some cases, all to just say, well, you know, it's only canon if it doesn't contradict the movie. So that lies where my gripe is. So I'm going to get into it right now, just some of the things that I really don't like about the announcement. Not so much the announcement, but the revelation, if you will, of the novelization of The Rise of Skywalker. So, like we all know, The Rise of Skywalker novelization comes out. There's a line in there, or a passage, if you will, that does dictate the fact that the Emperor that we see in the film was indeed a clone. To be more specific,
more than a clone, less than a man.
What a joker.
This is a terrible Emperor impression, I know, I'm sorry. But anyway, that is what Ian McDiarmid, the Emperor himself, later came out to say was an actual line the Emperor was supposed to have in the movie in an exchange with Kylo Ren that takes place in the first act of the film when Kylo goes and confronts him there on Exegol. The Emperor was supposed to say that during the exchange in response to Kylo saying, you know, what can you offer me, whatever. You've all seen the passage, you know. So now, I mean, that stuff aside, we've seen that in the headlines. We all know it's there. And since then, even more canon breaking news has come out about the Emperor's son. All of a sudden, oh, he's a clone now, and you know, your mom's a clone too, blah, 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 you know, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's all irrelevant. Anymore, there's just too much new information that's coming out that just ceases to only retcon events that occurred during the film. And I don't know if it's just because Lucasfilm was lazy or they didn't spend enough time expanding on this information, like in development during the scripting phase and while the screenplay was being wrote. I don't know if, I guess maybe they just let JJ just kind of run rampant with the script and just not fact check anything like they're normally at least decent about doing. They at least try to make sure that things don't kind of contradict other things. I mean, it's pretty unfair to say it was anything with just JJ. I know Chris Terrio wrote the film with JJ, but I mean, for all we know, maybe they didn't fact check the novelization people. Maybe they didn't fact check the visual dictionary people. You know, who knows? But the only thing that we do know as fans is now we have multiple sources of conflicting information all regarding one central source, and that being how the fuck did the Emperor get back? Like, we saw the dude explode he got thrown down the thing, and then the thing went boom, and it was a big boom. I don't think you're just walking out from that, or in this case, I guess being carried out, but whatever. We'll get to it. But now it just seems that, you know, they're coming out with all this information, and it's just, what is it there for? Is it just meant to appease like some fans out there? Is it just meant to actually provide more insight and information as to, you know, reasons things happened that the film just didn't expand on for whatever reason? So it's like, why is it all coming out? And why is it all conflicting information? But all I know and all I can say for myself is that all this new information, it's just making me not care anymore. Like, at some point, you have to draw a line. At some point, does it just become nonsense? What point does this become dribble, you know? It's like having an argument with somebody, and, like, every time you engage them, they just contradict themselves, to come back with a new argument, and they're not realizing that their rebuttal contradicts their previous statement. So then you're just sitting there like, but you know what I mean. It is what it is. But anyway, the gripe I have with this isn't actually anything to do with the news that he's a clone or anything like that. The fact that he's a clone actually makes sense. You know what I mean? Like the reasonings they gave, well, the lack of reasonings they gave for his return in the film, because I'm sorry, because it's not a reason. You know, when you don't explain to the audience as to why this presumed dead character has returned, when you don't expand on that at all, then the only reason we're left with is because, which is not, it's not a reason. It's not a reason. It's one thing to never address it at all. It's another thing to come out with a visual dictionary that states one thing, and then a novelization that states another thing, and then even some actors now are saying other things. So it's like, okay, well, which one is it? Which one is it? Because, I mean, as a fan, I'd just like to know what I'm supposed to believe anymore, more than anything. So yeah, like I said, I'm perfectly fine with him being a clone, because that makes sense. I mean, there's a whole era in Star Wars, and in a war in particular, just referred to as the Clone Wars. So a character being a clone isn't a new thing. It's a fairly common thing, especially the Emperor, who I'm pretty sure played a pretty big hand in Order 66. I might be mistaken. My canon lore is a little bit fuzzy because my canon source material is also a little bit, who the fuck knows anymore. But anyway, the main issue I have, like I touched on before, is just that the movie doesn't actually say and give you any clear explanation or indication that the Emperor's a clone. And they have a perfect opportunity to do it during that scene that Kylo's there on Exegol with the Emperor, and you see all the tanks with the Snokes in it, which they don't even really expand on there either. The only thing you get from that is, I am Snoke. And it's, what? That's it? That's it. That's the only explanation that you get. You get to see a bunch of weird Snoke bodies in a tank, and the Emperor says, I am Snoke. Again, how? Is that it? Where did the Snoke clone come from? Because Snoke presumably there was some sort of biomaterial or something that this clone was made from. Who was it? I mean, it's just a simple thing. If you're going to say that, then expand upon who the fuck Snoke was at that point. Because, I mean, you're just given this like little one-off line, and you just roll with it. And I mean, to be fair, it doesn't matter. In the movie, it doesn't matter. In the sequel trilogy, Snoke's backstory doesn't matter. It never mattered. We never knew who the Emperor was throughout all the other movies. And the prequels, we got to see that, okay, cool, he was this Chancellor guy, whatever. You know, we found out he was the Senate. So, I mean, maybe it's just the Emperor, and he just likes giving very vague explanations. They're just making very vague statements, you know? Because he went from being the Senate to now he's Snoke. So, I don't know if that's a demotion. Probably was a demotion. But anyway, when you watch the movie, it kind of gives you the impression and almost deviates away from the fact that the Emperor is a clone. Like they even do kind of make it more out to be that he, kind of like the visual dictionary says, which I'll get to in a minute, like he was kind of just brought back. Like he didn't die. That's what the film makes it seem. Who knows? Like, and again, Ian McDermott has came out and said, since the novelization came out, that he did have a line. There was a line in the script reminiscent to what is in the novelization. And what just racks my brain about the whole thing, if you have one line that just gives the audience the information they need to know that I am a clone of the Emperor, you don't need to expand on it anymore. Just like they didn't expand on I am Snoke. Like, we didn't need more than I am Snoke to kind of just infer the rest of it. Like, oh, I guess Snoke was just a clone and he's being controlled by the Emperor. Who knows? That's like an interesting... Like, we didn't need to know. We didn't need 10 more scenes with flashbacks showing us that. Like, we get it. Like, that's fine. So, why do you cut one other sentence out that provides even more useful information, even more pertinent information to everything? In that he's a clone. Like, it couldn't have been for time because they kept the other line, they kept the Snoke lines. Why would they not keep this line in there? It doesn't. If this line was added into the movie, it doesn't change the movie. Like, nothing changes in the movie. You could just throw the sentence in there and you're done. You move on. The rest of the movie plays out. So, I mean, in the end, like I kind of hinted on the beginning of the film or the beginning of this video, it doesn't make or break anything. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't make the movie any better. Him being a clone in general does not make the movie any better. Like, nothing about the revelation of him being a clone makes me go and watch that movie and I'm like, you know what? Now that I know he's a clone, it makes sense that he was stupid to use Force lightning like that again. Totally makes sense. The real Palpatine wouldn't do that. No one's saying that. It doesn't change anything about the movie. Nothing. But I will tell you one thing it would have made better. It would have made this better. It would have made the fandom better. Because I'm sorry, having one line like that in the movie is better than having a visual dictionary come out that says one thing and then a novelization that comes out that says another thing. But then your actor says another thing. So now it's like, well, we have 2 or 3 different just things out there that say this is what happened and this is why. But then you see another thing and it's just, why? Well, why? So keeping with that theme, my second big gripe with this whole situation is just the fact that the visual dictionary, like I've brought up numerous times now, has a completely contradicting story, which came out first. It came out before the novelization did. So the movie comes out, doesn't really tell you anything, just because. Then the visual dictionary comes out and it says the Sith Eternals, which are the hooded Sith groupie dudes at the end of the film. Another thing that you don't get told, another thing that's withheld from the audience is who the Sith groupies are. Well, they're the Sith Eternals, duh, dude. Come on, man. They supposedly, according to the visual dictionary, recovered his body from the destruction of the Death Star at the end of Return of the Jedi, and through occultant technology were able to revive him. That's a stupid enough reason without explaining it. Like that's a non-reason. That's a non-explanation. Like because is better. Because is almost better. So that's it. I mean, that's my biggest gripe with it, is just that there's too many explanations to this one little thing. That one sentence in the movie would have resolved with no expounding on needed, or just a consistent narrative with outside source material would have been fine too. I mean, the fact that you have material come out that is supposed to be canon and stuff you're supposed to trust as canon, when the visual dictionary comes out, that's canon lore about the film. Like there's a direct correlation there. But when the novelization comes out, that is also supposed to be a direct correlation. It's just that it's a novelization of what you saw in the film. It's not supposed to change anything or bring any new revelations. It's just supposed to bring the film into a new medium. Let the events of the film be given to you to consume in a new way. That's really it. It's not supposed to do more. It's not supposed to be a sequel. It's not supposed to be a history lesson. Like, it's fine when they expound on a couple things here and there, but like changing key events and key details is not something that you're supposed to do, and it's something they've done before, and it's bit them in the ass before too. Because way back when, when Disney first acquired Lucasfilm, they came out and said everything from before now, everything that happened before, all the comic books, all the video games, all the novels, everything back then is no longer canon. The only thing that is canon going forward is the movies, so all the feature films, and then the Clone Wars TV show. Those were canon. Everything else, we're going to call that Legends material now. Then, if I'm remembering correctly, there was something that came out in the novelization of The Force Awakens that contradicted the film. I think it had to do with Rey, and it had to do with something. I don't care enough to go look it back up, so just go look it up. It happened because the most important part is this next statement that Kathleen Kennedy came out when she was questioned about that. Like, hey, how come this thing happened in the book and it's a novelization of the movie, but it didn't happen in the movie? And then she says, well, the books are canon and everything's canon, but it's only canon if it doesn't contradict the films. Okay. And it's like, but doesn't that just mean the films are the only thing that's canon? Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you have material out there that cannot contradict the films, and if it does, then it's not canon, then that's just saying that the films are what's canon and nothing else is canon at that point. Because, I mean, how can we as a fan or anybody that consumes Star Wars material, or not even how, but why would anybody go and consume the content if, on a whim and without any notice, the films could contradict it, which would technically speaking, at least according to Lucasfilm, decanonize the events of that novel or video game that you're enjoying so much. You know what I mean? And granted, like I said, this is just not important information, but it's just it's an annoying business model, in all honesty, and just kind of a lame way of running a business and just going about it. Because it's one thing, in a lot of franchises, they don't build their brand off having a big canon lore. Like Star Wars is known for having, I mean, it's Star Wars. I don't have to explain what Star Wars is. And it's important when these things actually make sense. And the problem wherein is when you come out and say, all of this stuff, A, B, C, and D, that's canon. This is all. You can look at this. That's history. This isn't, okay? All this stuff over here, that's not. A, B, C, D, that is. That's important. If you're going to come out and say that, then you need to stick to that. Because if you're not sticking to that, then what's the point? Why should the fans? Why should I go and buy all these comic books? Why should I go and buy all these novels? Why should I go support it? If literally, like I said, if the movie is going to come out and they're different, then what matters? Now all of a sudden, if there's some great character that comes out in this novel or something, and then some new director wants to use that character and just completely redoes everything about the character in the film, now essentially my character that I just fell in love with here is essentially dead. And now this one on screen is what we have to live with now, because, well, that's canon, because it can't contradict with the films. And again, guys, don't misunderstand me. I know none of this really matters. Even to us Star Wars fans, it really doesn't matter. We have to remember that we definitely are in a bubble. And me knowing all this useless information about the Star Wars dictionary over here, and then the novelization over here, but then the film here, and then a thing an actor says here, then a video game. Most people don't know any of that. They just go and watch the movie, all right? And then the books are made for a completely different demographic. So it's a very, very big bubble because it's Star Wars. So they have a little bit bigger of a bubble than some other franchises out there, but it's kind of like, look at the Marvel movies, for instance. You're going to have 20 some odd films, and most of the general public obviously goes to see those films. 80 to 90% of those people did not read the comic books that associated and got the Marvel movies where they are today. Trust me, you don't make that much money with just fans. And that's been proven in the past numerous times. Franchises, as far as film goes, they are not financially successful without having a larger demographic in the general audience all being on board and liking it and going and repeat viewings. That's what makes the films money. You know, man, the money thing's that's not just the important thing. I'm just kind of reiterating the fact that this is all happening in a vacuum, and it only affects people that are a part of this vacuum inside of the bubble, because your mom doesn't care if Palpatine was a clone. I mean, maybe your mom does. Who knows? But your mom, and most people's moms, probably don't care about inconsistencies with a visual dictionary and, you know, some book. You know, it's not important information for most people out there. But that being said, there's always a caveat, right? And that caveat in this situation is the fact that it might not matter big picture to the big audience and the big fans out there who just go and watch the big movies and all that, but it does matter to us. It matters to those diehard Star Wars fans. It matters to the people who eat, sleep, live, repeat Star Wars. That's who it matters to. And all something like this does is further divide a fan base that's arguably more divided than ever. I mean, ever since The Last Jedi came out, there has been there's a line right through the fandom. And I'm not going to get into any of that. It doesn't really matter, but that's just how it is. It wasn't as bad, really, but the same kind of thing happened with the prequels, but the prequels over the years have become a lot more loved, so you don't see it as often, but it was the same kind of situation. The Star Wars fandom is always on a break, you know what I mean? If you watch Friends, the Star Wars fandom is Ross and Rachel. That's what it is, you know? They were on a break or they weren't on a break. That's what the fandom is, and that's what things like this, that's what it makes fandom be. It makes you be on a break. Because now I'm essentially on a break from Star Wars because I'm starting not to care anymore. Say, okay, that's fine. That's canon. That's not. Whatever. I'll just watch the movie when it comes out, I guess. You know, doesn't matter. I'm not going to care about the lore behind it. I'll just deal with it and just accept it as it comes. It's just frustrating because now if you're trying to like talk Star Wars with somebody and you're trying to have it, you know, just talk Star Wars, shoot your shit, like whatever, and you're like, yeah, so what you think about Palpatine being a clone? And they just feel like, what are you talking about? And you're just like, hey, dude, what do you think? He in the movie stuff, he's a clone? And they're just like, you telling me he wasn't a clone? They didn't say anything about that. Just, yeah, dude, in the novelization, he was, you know what I mean? It creates a division even with that. It's like just having a general conversation with somebody, and it's like you just don't even know anymore. Like, how am I, like, now I have to judge, not so much judge, but I have to, like, gauge, like, who I'm talking to. And, like, I gotta, like, make sure they pass, like, a prerequisite check of what they know about Star Wars before I can have a conversation with them, because I might just be spouting nonsense off to them, and they might be spouting nonsense off to me because I didn't read the Victual Dictionary, or I didn't read the novelization, you know, or I didn't play that game or whatever, because there's too much conflicting information for anybody to keep track with at this point. And it's unreasonable for anybody to just assume that everyone is going to know everything there is to know about every Star Wars piece of material in every media. I'm like, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. The worst part about the situation, and you know it's true, and we all do this. We absolutely all do this. Everybody's guilty of it. Don't act like you're not guilty of it, because I know I'm guilty of it. You are too. This is what this situation thrives on. These people love this. It's the one-uppers and the actualies, okay? Because now all of them out there, all those people who did read all that stuff, now they get to do this kind of thing. Well, actually, Palpatine, he was a clone in the novelization. They said he was a clone. And you're just like, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean he's a clone? What do you mean? I'm just talking about the movies. It's like, well, the movie's wrong because in the novelization, he's a clone. But I'm just, okay, man. But then, you being you come back at him like, yeah? Well, what about the Visual Dictionary, Karen? It's ridiculous. All right, it's just ridiculous. Because you know what I mean? Now, these conversations do happen. You know it. You know this has happened somewhere. You know I'm not making this up off the top of my head. This stuff happens all the time when things like this happen. In any sort of fandom or anything in general. It doesn't matter. This always happens. That's what creates the division. It's little things like that. The mentality people will have just trying to talk, just have fun. It's like, well, you know, yeah, you might enjoy that, but the novelization completely killed it all. None of it's real. Nah. And it's like, that's not fun for anybody. You know, that's not fun for the person who enjoyed the one thing. It's not fun for the person who enjoys a new thing. Division. But I guess in the end, I mean, all this really does is just indicate to me that Lucasfilm at some point, they've just stopped caring or not putting as much effort into it, or maybe they've just been too busy since they've been trying to put out so much more content. Like, I don't know what it is. There's obviously been a lack of cohesion within their core group of, you know, your Pablo Hidalgos and all the people who like are your champions of lore in Star Wars. They've dropped the ball a couple times here lately, and it's just kind of frustrating, especially when it comes at a time when the Star Wars fandom is as divided as it is right now. It's the biggest problem, and it's like no one should be. They should be really working towards, and you can tell they've tried because they obviously are trying to appease fans. You can't deny that they haven't been trying to appease fans. The Rise of Skywalker, that is a complete fandom dump on people. That's all they intended with that movie was just, well, you know what? Let's just try to fix everything, guys. Let's just throw this shit in here. Let's just do this. Let's do this. Yeah, man, that would be great. You know what I mean? That's what that was. And that might be simplifying a little bit, but that's pretty much what that was. And it just kills me. It just kills me. More than anything, honestly, it kills me that Lucasfilm, during all this stuff, with all the division and all the problems and all the unhappy fandom or whatever, through all that, for the sequel trilogy, for all that, they quietly put together this writer's room of all their book writers, all the big people. All of them got together and they went and built out the lore. They built it all out, right? They built it all out. For the High Republic. They go and they got all their big writers' room people together. They took them to Skywalker Ranch. And they all collaborate and they create all the lore and the backstory and everything and all this cool shit for all this new world of Star Wars and this new time period that has been unexplored. This new sandbox for Star Wars and Star Wars fans to all get together and have a fantastic and wonderful, amazing time. They put all this work. And I mean, as of right now anyway, it's just a couple books. Right? So they went out of their way and they put all this time and effort and resources and care and love and passion. Gathered all the biggest names in Star Wars writing and what have you, and they put all of it into this. But not for the sequel trilogy? Not for the big movie franchise that, makes all the money for Star Wars. And I mean, I know merchandising, but the big thing, the movies are the big thing. That's it. Like, you don't put that same sort of love and attention and care into the fucking movies. You put them into some books. And that's not a slight at the books. It's just, you know what I mean? It's a scale, right? Like, it's like I said, big picture thing, okay? More people are going to go watch the Star Wars movies than they are going to go read the books. That's just the fact. So when you put that much effort into the books, you should probably put a little bit of that effort, if not a little bit more, into the movies. You would think. But why? But anyway, here we are. At least we have the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda. That's cool. So I guess we'll just have to wait till season 2. Wait for season 2 of the Mandalorian, and everyone will be happy again, right? I guess that's where we're at. So anyways, guys, I really appreciate you if you hung in there through that entire rant. I don't know. It's just been bothering me. And it's for no real reason. It's just stuff I thought about. And I don't know. But anyway, what do you guys think? Do you agree that it's really just not a big deal for anybody other than Star Wars fans, like big Star Wars fans? Or do you think it really is more of a systemic problem like brought on by Lucasfilm and just the way everything's been run ever since the Disney acquisition? Do you think they've been dropping the ball a little bit lately? Whatever it is, guys, I want to hear your thoughts about it, so let me know in the comment section below. And as always, guys, take care.